Well, good morning and welcome to the Team S.T.E.A.M channel. My name is Ray and today we're working on a 2005 Kenworth W900. Now, if you've watched very many of my videos at all, you've come across a truck that looks like this one quite a few times. Those were all 2001s, a couple of 2000s maybe, and this one is a 2005. They do all belong to the same company though, and this company runs hundreds of trucks. And when they get enough miles on them that they want to get rid of them, they fix them all up, get everything fixed, motors, transmissions, everything that needs to be fixed, paint, and then they put brand new tires on them, brand new bumper on them, new grill if it needs it, new exhaust if it needs it, fill the tanks up completely and send them to an auction that takes place, I think, at Vandermeer Speedway in Colorado. And this truck is scheduled for an auction just like all the other ones. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through, we're going to fix anything that needs fixed, and we're going to get some paint on it. And yesterday I already sandblasted the chassis on this one. We were expecting some rain today, so I went out yesterday afternoon, got the chassis all sandblasted, got it pulled in so it could be ready, warmed up and ready for this morning. The boys are going to be in here any minute. We're going to go ahead and wipe parts of it down with thinner, and then we're going to get it all masked up, and we're going to figure out exactly what all needs to be done on this one. The back of it has what I consider a normal amount of damage. Not too bad really at all. I don't know how well the light or the camera picks up on it, but it's full of dents just like they are. But not really extreme, pretty normal. The doors need the paint all stripped off. This door has a big dent right here. That's probably not going to show up because there's not any gloss around it, but I don't know what happened right here. It looks like it got hit with a crowbar. And the doors on a lot of these trucks, this particular production run of Kenworths, for whatever reason the etching primer doesn't work or they weren't prepped right in the factory, I don't know. But I see these trucks running around in this age range and this production run all the time with paint falling off the doors, and these are no exception. So we'll be stripping all the paint off the doors, fixing that giant dent, fixing any other dents that need it, we'll paint them as well. The passenger side, as you can see, this is way out, and that cab corner has been damaged, which is pretty typical. With this particular model of truck, I see that cab corner damage all the time. Let's go ahead and pop the hood open and see what's under there. And now that I've got the hood open, the first thing I see is what I see a lot on these early 2000 Kenworths and a lot of other trucks: base clear failure. I see in the comments sometimes, and I've heard for years and years, how base clear is far superior to single stage, but that is a myth. Base clear is only as good as the quality of the clear coat itself. So if your clear coat isn't of high quality, or it doesn't have enough mill thickness, in other words, you don't put enough coats of it on, you're better off using a single stage. At least single stage, if it fades out over the years, you can buff it back out and get it shiny again. What are you going to do with that? You're not going to be able to buff on it. We got to wipe this truck down with thinner, because I'm sure in the lifetime of this truck, somebody tried to buff on it, that they didn't cause this damage. But a lot of times when owners or operators see this sort of thing happening, they immediately think, oh, well, I'll get the buffer out. But you can't, because this is just damage where the sun beat right through the clear coat and baked the base coat underneath. And when it does that, it kind of powderizes it, ruins the adhesion, and then the clear coat comes off. And as you can see, I see this all the time. Anybody that thinks base clear is the far superior is only partially correct. A good quality clear coat with the right amount of coats will last the lifetime of the truck. How often do I see that around here? Almost never. There used to be only about 3 manufacturers that made base clear, and so it was a fairly trustworthy product 30 years ago. But now there's hundreds of companies that make clear coat. Almost none of them are proven. A lot of these companies just started up in the last few years. Companies get shut down, broken apart, and bought up by other companies. Formulas get changed, things get changed all the time. So you'll see a lot of these clear coats on the market you can order right off of Amazon or anywhere else. None of them are proven, and most of them will fail within 5 years. They'll either turn yellow or they'll let the sun through. I'm not saying this is a cheap clear that came off Amazon. This is an Imron clear. These factory paint jobs are Imron clear, and Imron is a trustworthy paint manufacturer. But here, look, if that's not enough proof that base clear is very subjective, then I don't know what is. If you have the highest quality clear and enough coats, yes, it can't be beat. But if you have anything other than that, you might as well just go with a single stage. At least single stage is trustworthy and doesn't do this. And a lot of times when I pop the hood on these particular trucks, these older Kenworths, but especially the ones that belong to this company, not that this company's rough on their trucks, it's just that they got a lot of drivers. Drivers oftentimes don't check things, don't care, open the hood too hard. The drivers that aren't the owners are oftentimes hard on vehicles. And these guys have a lot of drivers. And so a lot of times when I pop the hoods on these Kenworths, I see all sorts of issues on the inside, structural issues and this and that. Let's go ahead and take a look in this one and see what we've got. Okay, now I'm standing here on the passenger front tire, looking inside the hood, and it starts to look like there might be something missing. I see right here, these are normally sloppy. This one is pretty tight. That one looks pretty tight. Let's look here in the middle. That entire brace that normally has a cable that goes through a bolt. You have a bolt that comes right down through that brace, and a bolt has an eyelet on the bottom, and attached to that eyelet is a cable that runs up to here and attaches right here. There is no cable, there is no bolt, there is no eyelet, because there is no brace. That brace is gone entirely. And so what do you do in a situation like that? You just bought a Kenworth from an auction or from somebody else. You open the hood, it's real springy when it opens, and it doesn't hit a dead bottom like it would if it had a cable in it. And so you peek inside the hood and you see that. Or one of your drivers returns the truck back after a hard few weeks of running it, and you go to open the hood to check the oil, and you see that. A broken brace or a missing brace altogether. What do you do? Do you order a new hood and then try and find a competent painter in this world to make it the same color as the truck? How do you handle it? Well, in this video, I'll show you exactly how to handle it. Using materials that are easy to come by, and instructions that are simple and easy to follow. And if you follow them, you can do this same thing to your Kenworth. Well, boys will be in here any second. Time to get started. Okay, well, I had the boys masking on that truck all day long, taking parts off, masking it, getting the hood all wiped down with lacquer thinner. And while they were doing that, I was outside working on this. What this is my car hauling trailer, and it's a tilt bed trailer, but the winch that I had for it is a boat winch for pulling boats up onto trailers, and it just wasn't enough to pull most vehicles up onto this bed. And so I've got this 12,000 pound winch that I just bought. It's meant to be mounted to somebody's heavy duty bumper or chassis. And I went ahead and got it mounted to this trailer here today. And the way I did that was I cut a chunk out of this plate steel. This is just something that was laying on a project that these people told me a couple years ago that they didn't want to throw it away, and of course I didn't, but I cut a big chunk out of it. And so as you can see, there's that plate right there. And I've got bolts that run down through these 2x8s, and they've got big washers on the bottom side on these two front ones. On the two back ones, because it bolts in just 4 spots, on the two back ones, I've run bolts through this piece of channel, through this board, through an even heavier piece of 3-inch channel that's just on the other side of this board, and then 3 more bolts through this big heavy piece of channel. So it has a total of 7 bolts in it. And this piece right here is supposed to be mounted to a bumper, so there's no mounting brackets. There's no way to just put this to the winch. This is supposed to go to a bumper, and that's it. So what I did was I took this piece of exhaust mount bracket. This goes on a semi. This is the piece that mounts to the cab, and then these 2 ends right here mount to the piece of exhaust shield that goes around the exhaust pipe. And then the exhaust pipe also mounts straight to this, you can see. So the exhaust pipe mounts to this, the shield mounts to this, and this all mounts to the truck. So this is some good, well-built, heavy-duty stuff. And what I did was I cut it in half, cut these ends off, drilled a hole, rounded these ends off, and that's what you see right here. This cut in half, cut here. This piece was all painted and slid underneath here. This piece was all painted and slid underneath there. Then I cut these edges off to match the contour of this and drilled all new holes. So the bottom holes are the same ones that the winch is mounted to, and the top holes are the ones that that's mounted to. And that worked good as a spacer because this plate sits on top of this. So it needed a spacer out here anyway, and that works perfect for that. And I've already pulled that 2008 3/4 ton pickup up onto the trailer, and this is the footage doesn't show it very well, but this is a pretty good downhill slope. It's very difficult to get trucks and trailers backed up here in the winter time, in fact. But I went ahead and tilted the trailer on this driveway, which is itself downhill, and then pulled that pickup up onto her with the new winch. And I found out that some Yahoo that put this winch together in the factory, possibly a machine, probably a Yahoo, didn't mount the other end of the cable to the winch. So as soon as I went to pull the truck up, this whole spindle in the middle was just spinning inside of the cable, and the cable wasn't moving at all. I had to thread all the cable off and mount the cable as it was supposed to be to the inside of the winch before I could even get started. So if you're ever going to buy the 12,000 pound rough country winch, keep in mind their quality control is not very good. But that's kind of to be expected. I swear everything I've bought in the last 10 years, I had to work on before I could put it to work. It's ridiculous the quality control that goes on in this country, and maybe other countries, but for sure this country. Anyway, back to the project at hand. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go get rid of these sunglasses, get rid of these clothes, because anytime you do a serious fiberglass repair, it impregnates those clothes, and they're pretty much gonna be itchy no matter how many times you wash them from here on out. So I have a few outfits, a few different shirts and a few different pairs of pants that I use only for fiberglass. They're itchy when I put them on, and they're even itchier when I go to take them back off. But we wash them anyway, and then I put them in a special spot just so I don't have to use up all my clothes on fiberglass repairs. I do fiberglass repairs all the time. I wouldn't have any clothes left if I did it that way. So anyway, I'm gonna go get rid of these sunglasses, get into my fiberglass clothes, and get this prepped. Now that it's the end of the day and the boys are out of the shop, I'm gonna get that big exhaust fan going. And that end of the shop's already open. And I'm gonna go ahead and get all this prepped and get all this blown off, so tomorrow morning they're not playing in fiberglass dust, and I'm ready to start rebuilding this thing. All right, I got a little sawhorse. Just got a block of wood, just electrical tape to the both sides there, so we can not have any damage to the hood emblem. And so we're holding the hood up in a couple of different spots there. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get rid of all this garbage here first. And then, as you can see here, I'm gonna prep this clear around to here. Starting here, up to here, prep this lip, and about 2 or 3 inches above the lip, all the way around and underneath. I'm gonna get rid of this because there's nothing of it left. This is an insulating pad that came in these trucks. You can see that they take a lot of wear and tear. This one isn't even here anymore. I'm gonna get rid of that. I'm gonna get rid of this just to get it back out of my way. I'm gonna prep underneath here, clear to the corner, all of the lip, above the lip, down below it, 2 or 3 inches, all the way. Then I'm gonna prep this entire space all the way across on both sides. So when I go to build my new one, I've got something that's already prepped that I can attach it to. And what you'll do is you will run this die grinder to do your prep. And when you do, you'll run it at a bit of an angle, you know, like that. You'll run it at a bit of an angle, and that's gonna leave a bunch of scratches that go this way, right? Then you'll come back the other way again at an angle and prep the other way, and that leaves a bunch of scratches this way. That's going to create a beautiful crosshatch pattern with all your scratches, and that's what fiberglass really wants to stick to. I always go a step further, and then right at the very end, hit it with a couple swipes up, and if I can, a couple swipes down. So that way it's got 4 different patterns on it, all cross-hatching each other, and fiberglass will stick to that forever and ever. While I'm up here though, have a look at this roof. This is what I was talking about, base clear. This is Imron base clear applied at the factory. This truck's never been repainted. And I'm not bashing Imron, they build great paint. But at the factory, they only put 1 coat on apparently. Either that or the clear that they used was a more budget-minded clear, I'm not really sure. It's Imron, but they make more than 1 product, you know. And either way, this truck is 19 years old. And if this was a single stage, 19 years old, it'd be faded, but you could buff it. But this, you can't do anything with. You have to repaint it. And not only do you have to repaint it, you have to strip all this crappy old clear off. That's a whole extra large step. So again, if you're not gonna do base clear 100% right and use the best products that there are, don't bother with it. Well, now here it is, first thing the next morning. I got all that prep done. I'll go ahead and show you how that turned out. Prep the inside of these fenders. It turns out these are broken away on both sides. So both sides got this exact same prep. And then right here in this corner, also got some prep. On both sides, they're identical. The only thing I forgot to prep last night was this, and I'll get that this morning just with a low-speed drill. And that was all torn loose, all the way up, at least along the top of it. The underside was not. The underside's just to that point. And then we got the all of the prep done. So what we're looking at there is a 3 foot, exactly 3 foot gap right there. That is 3 1/8 of an inch by 2 3/4 of an inch to fit inside of those two elbow joints. What I have here is a 4x4 block that I ran through a table saw, cut it down to 3 1/8 by 2 3/4, and then I cut it off at 41 inches. So that means that it will stick into that side and into that side 2.5 inches a piece, which is more than enough to have it rest there and really tie this whole thing together. And as you can tell by looking at it, this is a piece of green treated lumber. This is just an old piece of wood I had along with quite a few others. I have a stack of usable construction lumber, and this was among it. And this is a green treated 4x4 block, so this will never rot. This will sit in this hood for 150 years, and no matter what kind of perspiration or moisture issue it has inside of there, it's not going to sit and rot. It's a pressure treated piece of wood. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to go ahead and try and stuff it in there, and if it fits nice and snug, I'm going to go ahead and start the process of fiberglassing it in place. And that's how it looks all in place. There's a little bit of a gap between the board and the center of the hood because the hood has a little bit of a V shape to it. It's not completely straight across, but that'll easily be filled with fiberglass. Now here I've got just a board sitting on top of a couple of sawhorses. I've got my cardboard, some big pieces, a couple of really big pieces, because once I get my matting cut and smothered in resin and then put on these boards, and then set probably right up here on top of the radiator while I'm in there working, I'm not really gonna want to have to get back up out of there and run back over here and reapply resin to a board and put down a bunch more matting while the resin that I have mixed up is busy trying to set up. You only have a few minutes to work with this stuff, and the less time you spend running back and forth, the better off you are. And so I've got my matting cut, 2 different sizes, a big stack of them. I've got my gloves. I usually will put these gloves on 2 or 3 pairs at a time. Literally one pair right over the top of the other pair. My hands will have 2, 3, sometimes even 4 gloves on them. That way when I come back over to get more matting and reapply, if my hands are all sticky from applying this fiberglass, and then I put my hands on these mats, then my hands just look fuzzy, they look furry, and you can't do much with them at that point. So rather than do that, when I come over here with sticky resin covered hands, I'll just pull off the outermost glove, and then there's still a glove on my hand. I don't have to take the time to reapply gloves. Then I can go ahead and handle these without any repercussions, get resin back on them, and then get back over there and get back to work. And I can do that 2, 3, 4 times in one shot without ever having to actually change gloves. Again, you don't want to waste a bunch of time. So here I've got my resin. This isn't any sort of endorsement. This is just the brand I use. It's 3M. Got my cups. I usually keep multiple cups around because once you mix up one batch of resin in there, you don't want to mix up the second batch of resin in there because the stuff that's busy setting up will turn to clumps and get in your new resin. And so the process is mix up my resin with my hardener in one of these cups to the desired amount. Pour it out on here. Use one of these spreaders, spread out a nice even coat on here, get it nice and spread out everywhere. Then lay these in it. Then once all these are laid in it, and this is all gridded out with this matting, get your cup, put another layer on top of it all the way across. Get your spreader, spread it out nice and evenly across all the tops of them until they turn dark in color and there's no more light color left in them. That means that they're saturated with resin. Then you take your board, carefully place it wherever you're going to place it, and get to work placing your resin, or get to work placing your fiberglass patches. Then once you're done, you get your board, you bring it back, swap it out for a different board, unless your resin hasn't set up yet. If you've only used half of your cup of resin on the first batch and you come back for the second batch, then use the same board, the same everything. It's not set up yet. Get your resin out of your cup, make a second batch, be quick about it. But once that one is set up and you're done dealing with it, retire the cup for a while until it's completely cured out and cooled back off, and retire your board for a while until it's completely cured out and cooled off. Use a whole different cup, whole different board, even a whole different stir stick. That way you're not contaminating your new batch of resin. Well, enough chit chat, let's get to it. Now, while I was waiting for that to go ahead and cure out, I went ahead and did these repairs on the inside of the fenders here on both sides. Found a good sized crack right here, so I went ahead and prepped it, glassed the back side of it, glassed all the way around there, glassed that corner. Did these two repairs on both sides. Those are completely finished and cured out. And while those fender repairs I just showed you, and these repairs on both sides, well, that side didn't require one, not until we got up into the corner. But those two repairs on the fenders and this repair right here, those are all 2 layers thick, because you can do that all at once. You can lay on 1 layer and then lay on a second layer, or you can double up your layers right there on the board before you transfer them to the project and put them on as 2 layers. You can get away with that all day long, sometimes 3. I mean, it's not that big a deal. But when it comes to the underside of something, especially the underside that spans almost 6 inches in total, it spans about 4.5, 5 inches in total from here all the way out to here. That's a lot to be hanging out underneath there. And if you put it on 2 or 3 layers thick, what you're going to find is it's going to sag under its own weight, and it'll be a nightmare. It'll be trying to fall off before it gets set up. You'll be constantly trying to have it push it back up, messing it up, messing up your hands, messing up the entire project surroundings, and then you won't win. You're going to end up tearing it back out of there while it's still wet or 2/3 set up and starting over. It will cure out underneath this tape, and the tape will peel up off of it without really any complications. The only time it gets complicated is if you have 2 layers of tape like right here, 1 layer up here, 1 layer here, and you get resin in between the 2. There, you get resin that drips down onto this one, and then you put this one over it, then you're gonna have to pick at it a little bit. But other than that, it pulls right off of there. And what it does is it helps eliminate bubbles underneath there. It smooths up the surface and evens out any inconsistencies. It's well worth your time oftentimes to use tape. And like on the underside here, it keeps this edge from draping down and getting a big bubble under it. It's just a handy little trick that I've never seen anybody else do, but I've been doing it for a 1/4 century now. And when I do these 2nd and 3rd coats, I'm gonna go ahead and finish up here where there's a deficiency in between this part of the repair and this part of the repair. And underneath here, finish going all the way up around this corner, finish going all the way up around this corner, finish up that little inconsistency. That'll all get 2 to 3 layers. Okay, so here, this has had plenty of time to go ahead and cure out. And see, like this right here and this right here, see how it's got that white around it? That's because I went ahead and hit that with the same roll-lock disc just to clean it up. Because when you first do fiberglass repair, what you're left with is this sort of stuff. And not only is that messy looking, but like that is razor sharp. That puts the glass in fiberglass. You run your hand across that, or an owner employee runs their hand across that, it's gonna dice you wide open and go clear to the bone. Same with that right there. That'll go clear to the bone. And so what I'll do is I'll either run my roll-lock disc over the top of it or just sandpaper on the hand or something like that. But when you have things like this, you're better off running a roll-lock disc over it. You run sandpaper on your hand, it's gonna take you a while to file stuff like that down. Plus, you're taking a pretty good chance at getting your hand cut open doing that. So I'm gonna go ahead and make all of this look just like this by running a roll-lock disc over it, clean it all up. And that's what it looks like, all finished up and ready to close the hood. Now, it's first thing the next morning, and I would say that the boys are going to be in here any minute like I normally do, but one of the boys has got a knee injury that he's dealing with, and so he's going to be here off and on. He's not going to be here quite as often for a while. And taking his place is my oldest daughter, who actually worked for me for years. She worked for me for quite a few years and was my shop foreman. She knows almost as much about this business as I do, and she's going to be stepping in for him. So when you see shots of the boys, it's actually going to be one of the boys and my daughter. All right, now here's what the back of this truck looks like with just the dent locations prepped. It's all I wanted to prep first because there's no reason to run bodywork over the entire back if there's no dents. Like this whole section here, this used to be where the wet kit was. The hydraulic cooler, in other words. And there's no need to go prepping that. But all these other locations, that's where all the dents are. I'm gonna go ahead and put body filler on, get them sanded. Once they're sanded, I'm gonna get them glazed. Once they're glazed, I'm gonna go ahead and sand the rest of the back of the cab and the rivets and get everything ready to go, because this will also be in primer along with the hood and the door dents. And now we're at the point where we're gonna sand and scratch the back of the cab while I'm working on getting that giant dent out of the door. I don't know how well this is gonna translate on film. See that? That dent starts about here and goes all the way to here. It's well over a foot tall. That's what I would basically call caved in. All right, at this point, we've got everything sanded and scratched. Got the body work done on the doors. As you can see, it's pretty darn big on the passenger door here. Got all the hood sanded, got all the glazing put on it in the spots where it needed it. Little rock chips and cracks and that sort of thing where this body work was, because this was split right here. Some gouges that were in it. Got those all glazed up. Body work done on the driver's side door. You can see the top of the door's not all swollen like it was anymore. Got that all pushed back into place. Got it pulled out a little bit and got the rest of it filled. Now we're ready to go ahead and get some primer on this guy. All right, so here's the next morning. As you can see, got some priming done here on the back. Primed both the doors, primed the entire hood. And now today, the focus is going to be to sand these fenders down, get them 100% ready, get them in blue, and get this chassis in black. And by chassis in black, I merely mean get the chassis fully prepped, blown off, 100% ready, and in black primer. It won't be painted black today. The fenders will be painted metallic blue today. The chassis will be primed in black today. All right, I've got the chassis primed in black. I've got the fenders re-primed in gray epoxy after I sanded them. And now enough time has gone by, I'm ready to shoot some blue on the fenders. All right, well, here it is first thing the next morning. These fenders have had all yesterday afternoon and all last night to cure out. Now, first thing this morning, I'm gonna go ahead and get some vinyl tape and segregate the fenders from the hood. So when Ash and Kit get here in a few minutes, they can go ahead and mask up these fenders for me. Then we're gonna go ahead and sand everything down, finish everything else up, get the cab and hood in white today, and get the chassis in black today. Just like that. Now these guys can go ahead and get these fenders masked up, and we can get on with this show. Well, we're just getting the masking wrapped up here. And next we'll go ahead and get the rest of the truck sanded. All right, got the fenders all masked up. Got the truck re-sanded from front to back and top to bottom. Got it all blown off. Now all I have to do is wipe it off, get some primer on it. All right, well, here it is first thing the next morning. I've already looked it over. It turned out pretty good. I'm going to go ahead now and unmask these fenders before I do anything else, and we'll see how that goes. Well, that went pretty well. Ashton Kid will be here any minute. We're going to go ahead and get this guy unmasked and all put back together here this morning. Well, looks like we got her all put together. Let's go ahead and walk around it and have a look. Okay, this is a 2005 Kenworth W900. Sandblasted the chassis, double primed, double painted. And got the hubs. Got the chassis inside and out. Back of the cab had a number of dents in it like they normally do. Has 0 in it now. Driver's side door was caved in at the top. I would consider what it was caved in. It was a big, deep dent. It was over a foot wide. It was one of the bigger door dents I've dealt with in a while. That's completely gone. Looks just like it should. The hood had all sorts of issues inside of it. We got in there and I put a whole new main brace in and fiberglassed a lot of the areas that had come loose, closed again. And as you can see, it turned out even more solid by quite a bit than it ever was when the truck was even new. And it required quite a bit of work. This truck's gonna get new grille components, the pieces that it needs. It's gonna get a new bumper. It's gonna get polished up. It's gonna get brand new tires all the way around. And even the fuel tank filled completely up before it goes to an auction. Well, looks like it's ready to go. Well, that about does it for this guy. Up next, we've got a 90s model Pete 379 sleeper truck that needs attention in a lot of areas, and it's also gonna have a lot of custom touches done to it. We're gonna pull it in just the second we pull this one out. This one right here. Hey, if you like this video, take the time to hit the like button. It's gonna help me grow my channel. And if you want to see more of what goes on around here, come check me out on Facebook at Flash Industrial Painting. And if you want to see more videos like this, or domestic auto body, or gardening, or art, or any of the many things we do around here, you might as well go ahead and hit the subscribe button while you're at it, because you know, we always got something going on. We'll see you guys around.